Again, I want to acknowledge that you made the choice to sit down with us, and whatever you're doing, take the time to spend with us. And this moment is precious for me because I have a good friend here today that I'm excited about getting to know more about. And this is my environment that I started on my personal journey this year to where I could sit down face to face and have an intimate conversation with somebody and share that and see what comes out of just being curious and happy to spend that time. So today is very special again because Jaclyn Winters is my guest today. She and I have met through acquaintances, and one of the things that I was really excited about you sharing today was how you got on your path, but also kind of the things that you're doing to create that I can see.
Yeah.
But without any further ado, I would like to welcome Jaclyn Winters. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm very excited.
So Jaclyn, I kind of would like to start off introducing you and where you came from to our listeners, and so that they could resonate. If I'm not mistaken, Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is right on. Cincinnati, Ohio, born and raised. Went to Kent State University up near Cleveland for college, and then moved to San Francisco. I originally wanted to do sports reporting, which is very random. And
Really?
Yeah. My life journey is very interesting.
That's what I went to college to do.
Really?
I thought I was going to be a sports broadcaster.
Oh my God, that's so amazing.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yes. I went to school for PR, public relations. I got into randomly interning for the Browns and the Indians for 2 seasons in media relations, which then evolved into sideline reporting. And then it kind of just, it's just weird how our world kind of just evolves and things just kind of, anyway, keep going. But
School.
Yeah, and then I went to school, did the sideline reporting, and then I moved to San Francisco. And when I was in San Fran, I originally wanted to continue on the reporting side of things.
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. Randomly somehow got into the acting world. And I had done theater in high school and like all that good stuff. Got on a show, kind of got the acting bug, shifted gears, wanted to pursue acting full time, went to the American Conservatory Theater for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, and studied, did all that good stuff. And then my side job, I was doing, I was teaching bar fitness, ballet bar fitness, have a little bit of dance background and things like that. And so that was kind of like my side hustle. Ended up falling in love with that too and started teaching. And now I'm creating this whole brand based on yoga and ballet bar fitness. And
well, I'm glad you brought that up because I had something teed up that I was going to read. And I'm thinking, how can I describe Jaclyn? And so I went to your website and I wanted to read the about because I thought it was very well written.
Thank you.
So I would say there's a quote at the top. There's a method to my madness. Jaclyn is the creator and founder of the Conscious Method. Jaclyn has been teaching fitness and yoga and barre for almost 10 years. Her love for her clients inspired her to create a method that is safe, challenging, results-driven, and awakening. Her goal is to revolutionize the way people think about their bodies and fitness, and she's created more than a workout. It's an experience that helps awaken, connect, and align people to their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. She does this through her cueing, hands-on adjustments, seamless choreography, and musicality. And you can find her on Instagram at
theconsciousmethod or Jaclyn Winters.
Yeah. And so I thought that was a really cool description because it seems like that's the path. Like when I think about the word conscious or a mission or a pathway, and what I've observed from the outside looking in, so to speak, even though we're acquaintances, is when I read that, I was like, I got it. I said, okay, well, that's her mission right now. And so I think my question would be, is how did you get to that mission from the introduction that we got earlier?
Yeah, it was a journey for sure. Letting go of my ego was I think the biggest lesson I learned, and the tool that helped me the most in tapping into my soul light, my divine light, and yeah, and a lot of growth too, a lot of lessons learned. You know, I owned a studio for a while. I taught for different modalities, different fitness modalities.
Yeah.
Yoga teacher training was huge for me. That was like the biggest eye-opening experience of my entire life. That's what actually made me sell my studio that I was owning.
Where was the studio, if you mind me?
Calabasas.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So I owned it was a
So
franchise.
when did you move from Northern California?
So yeah, I moved to LA to continue acting.
Oh, okay.
So that's what brought me here.
Okay.
And then when I moved here, I was teaching still for the company that I ended up. It's called the Daily Method.
Okay.
That's where I kind of started my fitness journey.
Just method, the Daily Method.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, the method thing keeps coming, keeps trending.
Okay.
And so I came down here. I started teaching for a franchise of the Daily Method because that's where I taught up in San Francisco.
Okay. So made the move.
Exactly here. So it was kind
easier.
of a transition. Yeah, it was like easier to do. And then the owners wanted to sell their studio. So me and a business partner ended up taking over. And it was a franchise, and I owned that for a couple years. And that was a huge learning experience, owning a small business. Oh my goodness.
Owning a space where people are coming into.
Yes. Oh my
Humans.
God. Actually, also, I was like 25 when I did
gosh,
it. So I was like
really?
a baby. Yeah.
That's impressive
Oh,
to take that responsibility on.
Oh, it was yes, it was a lesson.
And you had a
learned.
partner.
I had a partner,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
And she was slightly older, and now reflecting back, I just wish I would have done it now opposed to 25 because, you know, I was still a baby at that point. But you think, you know, at that age, you think you're like, whatever, I can do whatever.
Oh, God.
Right? Right?
Oh, God. Yes.
Go back to
yes.
the 20s. You
Yes.
think you're invincible.
Oh, gosh.
But now reflecting back, I would have handled a lot of things a lot different.
Do you mind if I ask if you had to give your one piece of advice as a to that person, like right now, what would it be? I guess two parts. Would it be more of a business or a creative side of things? Would it be strictly business, or would it be more?
I would actually be more spiritual.
Okay.
Like love would be like the biggest thing. Like lead with love in everything. Like everything you do, you know, because that's just going to make every situation better. You know, and lead with your light. Don't lead with your ego, and do the work to disassociate, you know, between the two or associate between the two.
When you look back at that period of time, do you feel like it was very, I don't know, kinetic, like a lot of things, you're balancing a lot, you're trying to multitask a lot, you're growing, how was your personal growth during that time?
It was... I just feel like I was so stubborn. I was so stubborn.
That same 20-year-old.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to smack me. Like, I would not have liked me now. Like, we would not be friends.
I would smack me. I love that.
We would just not be friends right now. We are two different people. I would just, she was just so stubborn, that 25-year-old me. And again, just it's just love and light is like, I think the foundation of everything. If we can just find that more in all of our everything, our situations, the way we think, everything would just be better, and awaken to that. That's all I'm about.
So I'll use your word awaken. Was there a moment where you had an awakening where the multitasking and the multitude of things that you were trying to accomplish just lifted and went away, and you had sort of an awakening, I guess, that you said, I'm going to focus on this path?
Yeah.
Can you describe that moment in time?
My yoga teacher training, because I went through yoga teacher training while I still owned the studio. And when I delved deep into my stuff, I realized I have some stuff.
Don't we
and
all?
I just wasn't feeling good about who I was. And I felt like, you know, selling the studio, selling my half, and letting go of this part of me that was, it was like a mirror almost, owning the studio. It made me see all of the things that I didn't like about me. And then the yoga teacher training was like,
the
guide. Yeah, that my little guide standing next to me, making me look at myself and be like, okay, this is kind of ugly you, right? Like how now we see it. How do we release it? How do we fix it?
That's a really good point. And I think becoming the witness to your own life is probably one of the hardest things to describe.
Yes.
To others.
Yeah.
To others.
Yes,
and that awakening part. You know, I was listening to I digress. I was listening to a podcast today, and it was Deepak Chopra. It was on Jay Shetty, and I love that podcast. It's I believe in what he's doing, but one of the things that I found super intriguing was about how he starts his awareness with, and he described it as the screen of consciousness. And when I became a witness to that screen of consciousness, then everything slowed down. And it was the way he said it. It was just it resonated so easily.
Wow, I love
in that one sentence. And then to hear you talk about awakening and the witness,
Mm-hmm.
that I think is probably the hardest struggle as a human, especially when we get in a conversation about mindfulness or consciousness, the words, is how to find the observer.
Yeah. And how to take responsibility for it, you know, and like want to make that shift. Because I think as humans, we sometimes see it, but then we're like, well, you know, like it's hard. Change is hard, right? Like, how am I going to fix that? Or maybe we don't know how to fix it. But yeah, I think the first step is just awareness and seeing it.
And letting go of something that was weighing you down.
Exactly. And seeing that too. And accepting that. Accepting, because it kind of like 25-year-old me looked at, I have to sell my business. I'm a failure, right? And nobody wants.
But the observer in you was like, you have to sell your business. This is a failure. You're becoming a failure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry.
Like you're failing.
Come on, girl.
No what? Yes. But now, like looking back, it was never really like it was the best thing that could ever happen to me, you know? Like, and that's another thing too, that I think as we get older, we realize that these things we look at as failing are actually like the best things that could possibly happen to us. And we have to let that ego go and that attachment go and really just be like, okay, I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna let go.
The defining of failure is probably pretty hard for most of us obviously because of our ego. So I think it's really rare and admirable that as a young 20-something, even in the midst of what could have been turmoil, you were able to have the awareness. Was it a gut feeling or was it a real mindfulness place? Again, it was the yoga experience. It had to. I
think so. Yeah, and also yoga, but also like.
You were
mentally body, like when you look at the numbers and you're in red every month and you're like, oh wow, this is getting nerve-wracking. I'm getting further and further in debt at 25 years old. I think that also too, like you become you see everything when you zone out a little bit and you look down at everything and instead of just, taking it, I don't want to say, because you want to take things moment by moment, but does that make sense when you just like zone out a little bit and you look at all of the pieces of the puzzle and you realize that, okay, this is just not serving me anymore. So it's time. But
it's hard because we get into, whether they're conscious or unconscious, agreements with ourselves and other people and the environments that we've created, that breaking that chain and those agreements becomes detrimental to who we are or the risk. And then even the creeping in of negative emotions and things like that happen that I can relate, because we kind of brought it up earlier when you walked in, but my personal journey and why I'm doing what I'm doing in the manner that I'm doing it now is because I was at a place where I wasn't happy with my job. And it wasn't so much that I wasn't being successful on a business side, but it was the spiritual and emotional side. And so I had to leave a 14-year career in med devices, and I was doing well, but I just wasn't happy. And it was a spiritual awakening. It wasn't technically like my gut was telling me I was succeeding. Everybody around me said I was good, but the things that I was doing to motivate myself weren't that great. And I had to have an awakening or multiple tries to awaken to be able to say, hey, that's it. And you got to let it go. So then what?
Can I ask a personal question?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
What was that awakening for you? What was that?
It was that I needed to, so a couple things.
Okay.
One, I would relate it back to when I first moved to California as a 20-something year old. And I was a musician, and I was aspiring, and I was driven, and I was passionate, and my life was full of art and creative people.
Love it.
And I supplemented that with the work that I did. And I was a lot happier, and I was dedicated. And I remember spending days and hours editing like a song and what that was like. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I made the comment to her, I want to go back to that guy. I want to be the guy that doesn't sleep for 2 days because he wants to edit a song and get it out and do it.
Yeah.
How can I create that person again?
Wow.
And so I had to let go of almost all of my business ties and focus 100% on a creative output. And that meant also doing it with others because I didn't want to do it on my own. And that's sort of how this thing we're doing now has been born out.
I love it.
Because I started doing a couple of different podcasts, a couple with my buddies, Derek Riker, you know Derek, and our friend Graham Bunn. We did a show called Cali Country Podcast, did a dozen episodes, super fun, around country music. And at the same time, I started my personal journey, and a lot of it was reflecting with myself and talking with myself. And so I have 7 episodes that were flower bombs.
Wow.
And now that's morphed into focusing on others.
Okay.
This is a creative environment that we can have vulnerable face-to-face conversations, ask questions, and it's safe to have honest answers, just kind of like what we did. Because a lot of times in the personal journey with stress or anxiety or anything where tough choices come, I know a lot more times than not in my life now, I turn to devices and things and materials more than inward. And that's been something that I've not been happy with. So I'm trying to focus on creating an environment that is more about being with others, being happy.
I love that.
And making my own path.
And
it's
that.
hard.
Yes, it is.
Horribly.
So, yeah.
There are nights that I
Right?
have not been sleeping. I wake, but I also know that part of the process is the emotional swings, and that you have the belief in yourself. That's why, like, even when you brought up, you're like, I was going to go to school for this. No, I went to school for that. Not even doing that now, but here we are in front of cameras.
Here we are. We're kind of back on it.
Yeah, the personal journey, how you get there is hard.
Yes. But it's important. It helps us grow. And I truly believe that trusting the process is so important, you know? And that's when you say you have those highs and lows, like just trusting and just trying to just remind yourself that you're in your light, you know? And that's what I when I work one-on-one with people, I always say you want to do something that serves not only you, not only makes you happy, but also is going to serve the world, serve others, you know? And I think that's kind of what you're kind of tapping into with this stuff, is you want to get this out. To
a highly
everyone.
Successful medical device sales rep is on a self mission to achieve quotas and gain, like, that is the most isolated. So just, I needed more goodness and good people and more start with love.
Yeah, your soul was craving something. Your ego was like, oh, I'm very happy up here at the medical
super.
sale. Yeah, but your soul's like, oh God, I need something. We need more here.
Yeah, so the question, the environment, which, and same with you, your work environment, your partners, what you're getting out of it, the bottom line.
Yep.
And if your bottom line is happiness, then that has to go.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say this is a real part of the conversation where, if anybody's listening to you now and they're thinking, oh man, I have this, and I'm like, what would be advice that you would give to somebody as a yoga instructor and a personal development that they can do on a daily basis to be more conscious of their environment?
Meditate every morning, first thing. And I know people are like, there's this kind of, especially in our society, meditation gets, I don't want to say a bad rep, but I think people get a little scared of it, like turned off, like, oh, I'm not doing it right. How do I do it? Blah, blah, blah. When meditation's not right or wrong way. You can't do it wrong. I promise.
I promise.
I promise. Literally all it is like, it's such a good tool to just ground you. Because I think what happens, I remember before I got into meditation, anyway, it may be just personal too, for me, but before I got into meditation, I felt like my mind was just like always going, like, and there was always like, wow, how do I do this? Oh my gosh, I got to do this. I got to do that. Why, now I can't do this. Now I have to think of that. You know, like my mind was just going like constantly. And then what I found with meditation is it just brought me down. It just grounded me. And I, again, came into more of that trusting.
That's right. Grab the microphone.
I keep hitting it with my hands. I'm like, oh, my body just wants to move.
I love it.
So meditation is like something I always recommend. And again, literally just wake up, sit down, close your eyes, and breathe. That's it. And then if a thought pops into your mind and you start to get distracted, one of the best tools when I was first starting that helped me is just imagine that thought as a cloud and you just push it away. And just keep pushing them away as they come. Just keep pushing them. And the breath is the secret ingredient. Counting your breath is really helpful too, to kind of distract you mentally. And also I talk a lot about the bodies, right? We have the physical body, we have the mental body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body. And usually one or all of our bodies are somewhere else, right? Physical body might be in pain from the workout you did yesterday. Your emotional body might be disrupted from an issue with someone in your personal life. Yeah. A mental body might be disrupted with work. Spiritual body might not even be there. You might be like, I don't know where that is. So the kind of ingredient that I use in my method is to pull all those bodies in the here and now. We want to pull them in to this present moment. And that is becoming present when you align all those bodies. And for me, that's what meditation does. And that's what the breath does. And counting the breath will really help. Also, when I teach my yoga classes in the beginning, we'll talk about like, first we connect to the breath. And then I tell people, remind yourself where you are right now in this moment. And usually in that moment, they're laying on the mat, breathing. Past already happened, let it go. Future is unknown, let that go. Only moment we have control over is the present one. And again, in that moment, they're laying on their mat breathing.
That's where you're at.
Life is pretty damn good, right? Like you're alive, you're abundant, you're whole, you're perfect in that moment. And what I find 99% of the time, every moment, we are beyond okay. All of our stress stems from those thoughts of the past, those thoughts, those intentions of the future.
Yeah.
Right? And if we let that go and just trust in the moment, life's good.
This is a good time to take a break.
Do you have your notebooks out?
This is a great time to take a break. And what I would ask of you, instructor, is that we're going to take a little break and then we'll come back and we'll have Jacqueline lead us through what could be done as a morning meditation for a few minutes.
Yay.
And we'll let her walk us through. Again, thanks for sticking around the first part of whylab. I'm Michael Flowers here with Jacqueline Winters, and we'll be right back. I'll say welcome back. Thank you for making the choice to be here today with whylab. And right now we're going to have Jaclyn Winters take us through a moment.
Yes, a little meditation that you guys can do every morning. Just something small. So I like to just get cozy and get comfortable. I'm going to go into an easy cross-legged position, but I know not everybody that doesn't feel good to you. So you can lay on your back, you can just stay seated, whatever feels good. I like palms down on your knees. If you want a little bit more grounding, palms up for receiving. And then you're going to close your eyes. And you always want to get rid of your stale energy or stale breath. So big inhale through your nose. Open mouth, exhale, let it go. Again, inhale, fill up. Heart opens, ribs expand, belly lifts. Open mouth, exhale, release, relax, let go. One more, big inhale. Exhale it out. And now you want to come into your Ujjayi breath. So inhaling through your nose, keeping your mouth closed as you exhale through your nose. It's a very deep, throaty form of breathing. And when you breathe like this, what it's doing is it's physically vibrating your brainstem. So it's naturally calming you. It's balancing the left and right hemispheres of your brain. And just for a few cycles, I want you to focus on this breath pattern. Long fluid inhales. Long fluid exhales. After you do this for a few cycles, I want you to start to scan your physical body without judgment, without story. And if you start to experience any tension, or if there's certain parts of your body that are talking louder than others, then just guide your breath to those spots and allow your exhale to release, relax, and let go. And now just by focusing on your breath and scanning your physical body, you pull your physical body into this here and now. But as we talked about earlier, we're more than our physical body. We also have our mental, emotional, and spiritual body. So let's pull our mental and emotional body in the here and now by simply reminding ourselves where we are right now, in this moment. And right now, in this moment, all we're doing is sitting wherever we're sitting and breathing. The past already happened, so let it go. The future is unknown, so let that go. And right now, in this moment, we are so perfect. We are beyond abundant. We are so whole. And take a moment just to fill up with that gratitude, that acceptance, that love for where we are right now. And see if you can hold on to this vibration, this energy. Breathe it in, embody it, and lead with it for the rest of your day. Notice how your experience changes, and also notice how those around you shift. We are the change. And when you're ready, your next inhale, you can gently open your eyes. And just breathe it all in. That's it.
It's definitely a different way to start the second half of the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For your focus and your time.
Of course.
I wonder if each of us had to I hate to be judgmental, but if each of us had to find our starting point, and that was a practice, what do we do? 3 or 4 minutes?
Yeah.
If we know how we would progress, is there, as an instructor, is there a place where people can have layers unpeeled and feel progressed without some magical awakening? Is there a sense of, and I guess that would be our practice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's different every day too. And I think that's something that we all have to recognize. Every day is different. So, and it all depends, again, on whatever we have going on in our lives. And sometimes we have things going on in our subconscious that we're not even fully aware of, right? So I think being kind to yourself and finding that non-judgment and acceptance of yourself and of ourselves in every moment again. And the great thing about, because in our society, in this Western culture, we're very physical based, right? And that's why I lead with the asanas is what we call it in yoga, which is the physical practice of yoga. So I structure my class to do a full awakening of the physical body, because I think that's in our society how we can start to peel back the layers, right? The physical is the first layer. So the more you can connect, and there's certain postures sometimes where people will have a big awakening. For example, pigeon is a huge hip opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
It's huge for me.
Yeah. And if you hold
especially
pigeon,
the right side.
Yeah, see, we all have one side. That's so true. But it's a huge hip opener, and energetically, our hips hold all of our emotions. So if I get people, if I can tell, and it's usually I can sense energies in different people, and if I can sense that somebody has a big emotional trauma, or if they even tell me they have an emotional trauma that they haven't dealt with, then I'll make them sit in pigeon for like 5 minutes, and you'll just see tears coming down like 2 minutes in. It's just like tears just streaming down. They're like, I don't even know why I'm crying.
Well, I've definitely had that experience before. I found Yin Yoga over here at Moto about 7 or 8 years ago with Joe K, who's since has opened his place called Urban Excel. I don't know if you know any of these folks, but the Yin practice is described by them as holding for like 3 to 5 minutes, and you might do 8 to 10 in a whole session. And the first two times I went, I completely and overwhelmingly was crying. What's awesome is that you're in hot yoga, and there's water. Nobody can tell if you're crying or not.
I'm crying,
but it was I had the block under my heart, and it was just. But the practice of that's when I tried to welcome the practice of stillness in more. I had somebody that recommended that class. Yeah. Otherwise, yoga had always been very physical, and to hear you talk about the physical side, I hadn't had. I don't know if that's an emotional breakthrough.
Yeah, exactly. You peeled back that first layer.
It was a little bit of a breakthrough for me.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that I haven't been in a while. And I see that as a byproduct of the lost part of my life. Because during the last sections, it was lost. And that's why I wanted to take a little piece of what you were talking about, because as you were describing how someone could do that, it reminded me of the stillness practice. Yeah. You're like, I'm going to make somebody do that for 5 minutes. Exactly. I'm like, wow. Yeah. That was what broke me through on an emotional thing.
So you broke through the physical barrier, and then you tapped into your emotional layer. So that was you and your physical and your emotional body. When that happens, they've connected. So now you've aligned those two bodies into one.
If I say vagus nerve, is that specific to yoga?
What is that?
Okay, well then I don't know. Somebody brought it up in a discussion the other day, so I'll let that stay. And it was about the physical practice of yoga versus physical activity and how that was different. And they said that the vagus nerve, which is what the yoga practice taps into more, it's not about building and breaking down muscles. It's more about the nervous system relaxing and engaging, and it was I kind of lost track of it.
Scientific, yeah. Scientific, yeah. We're
like talking about emotions
energy.
Here.
Yeah, I'm more energy.
All right, I got us off on topic.
No, it's actually I love that stuff because it's crazy how it's about perception, right? So like whatever that person was talking about, they have like more of a scientific perception of yoga, which is beautiful, right? And my perception's a little bit more energetic perception, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So it's just they're the same thing, just saying it in different ways, which is really cool.
And it also is relative to what you were saying earlier, which is how you described this as our culture is more attached to the physical thing. And that person, that's their conscious connection.
That's how they connect. Yeah, which is beautiful. That's it, as long as you find that connection. But yeah, it's for me, it's like it's just like layers, you know, like the asana layer. I can just now, I've been practicing yoga for almost 10 years, and maybe the last 2 years is when I tapped into more of that physical asana practice of yoga, and having that be and being present while in physical, that hard power yoga. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
2 years prior, I could not do a power yoga class and be present. And I was
Those were the ones that I did do because I was a CrossFit and athlete. And I was like, well, I'm going to go do yoga. Let me do the power yoga.
I'm going to be strength. Yeah.
And it's like the opposite of what I should have been doing. As soon as I found the stillness practice,
that's why I brought
it made my whole physical side completely more, I was recovering better.
Yep.
I had just more mental focus. I liked the dark place. It's more like I was becoming stronger because of the.
Yep.
Yeah.
You found your mind-body connection, which is something that I talk about a lot too. And that is so important. And then now you should take that into your more physical activities.
Yeah.
And see how that changes too.
The mind-body connection is a very new concept in terms of relative science or relative. It's not a well-practiced scientific-based thing. I think there's a lot of people that are tapped into it and trying to share it, but there's just not a lot of practical, clinical things that are going to describe it.
Yeah, this is the thing I've learned. Some people are really ready for it and are craving it, and there's some people that are like, nope. Not interested. Terrifies me.
Oh my gosh, this reminds me. There was a study done, literally male and female adults between the age of 35, 45, something like that, where they gave a choice, like 100 people. You can either sit and meditate for 15 minutes or you can shock yourself. 70% of the men shocked themselves. 30% of the women shocked themselves.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
They were terrified of 15 minutes in their brain.
Wow. Yeah.
So to your point, like some people aren't ready for that.
Exactly.
That brings me to like something that I think super important as we, you know, like we're in a really angst time. We've got politics up our everywhere we look, and we have sides being chosen for those that participate in that. I don't want to go about politics. I'm not very partial one way or the other. However, when I look at the consciousness of it and in the framework of this conversation, I would have thought by now in my generation, we would have gotten past the hyperpolarization and gotten more into a real social consciousness movement. I really thought that like I would be a witness to something that would be more on the good side of things. And as I look at things now, I feel like a lot of people aren't even ready for it.
Well, I think we're in transition right now. And I think with transition, there's chaos. And I think we're in chaos, right? Right?
That's a great word to use.
I know, it sounds scary, but and if you think about just transition on a personal level, it's the same thing, right? When we're personally in transition, it feels like our world is off balance and we're in a little bit of like, but as soon as the transition fades, the chaos subsides, and then the light, and we rise above it, right? And so I just think that's what's happening, in my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but I just feel energetically we're in chaos mode because we're in transition, we're in shift. And as soon as we just got to keep elevating each other and keep elevating ourselves to keep going higher and keep leading with the love, keep leading with the light, keep preaching that, being light workers on this planet, because I think that's what's really happening. A lot of light workers, sorry to get all like new age, but I think a lot of light workers are coming up right now, and it's new. It's a new theory for everyone. Like, who? Light workers? What does that even mean? So I think these light workers are trying really hard to help with this shift. But again, it's just chaotic energy right now, and it'll calm though. You'll see it.
It's also one of the reasons I've reformatted the way I'm doing this podcast and focusing on creating content to share with the world, is because I hope that the video side of this finds people and they're like, oh, I really liked that. They were being nice to one another. Oh, look at that. They were giggling and laughing. We even did a meditation. That to me is positive content. Yes. And if we can spread more of that, then the hate and bigotry and racism, like all the bad words that our culture now uses our tools at social media for, to express our innermost crazy,
create more chaos.
Yeah. How do you just find opportunities to lead with light and share vulnerable 101?
Yeah. Well, that's why I say love and light is the answer. As soon as you can, I mean, in every situation, you have to find the love and the light, and you have to be in your power center to help others see the love and the light in the situation, you know, and which can be hard, especially if you're talking about a subject that somebody personally resonates with, like somebody may have personally been in that Me Too movement, right? And like really be passionate about it, or... Oh,
that's what I'm talking about. It's like you have like, great movements, but you have polarized people doing things within each movement that there's not a representation of, you know?
Exactly. It's muddying the message.
Because it's if you don't bring love into the action that you're taking then it doesn't. And I hear people talk about, I hate Trump, or I hate this. And you're like, well, you literally just said the word hate.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. You can't.
And it's sort of, I become a real strong observer during these times because I don't get polarized. I don't have a really strong opinion. I've been talked down to for not having a strong opinion. You're like, God, I can't win here. You know, it's like trying not to impress. I'm not trying to impress my opinion on you.
You probably have an opinion, and it probably is a strong one, but you're probably like, I'm scared to say it because I don't want to be judged for my opinion. And I think that's where for me, and I will say, in the beginning, I was very guilty because I was angry. And that's the thing, is like you have to figure out where that hate's coming from. In the beginning, I was angry, so I had hate even I don't even like when it was, the election happened in the beginning. I was personally angry, and I did have hate, and I did do things that were out of my alignment, but it didn't feel good. And I think as soon as we see that too, and we see like, oh wait, hate doesn't feel good. So how do I shift that? How do I and it's not about agreeing with anybody or being weak and like, oh, going into my cage. It's like, no, you know what? I'm actually going to get bigger, but I'm going to get bigger with love. I'm going to get bigger with light. And you know what? I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to start doing.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
That's my hardest part.
Exactly.
I've spent so many years needing to impart my opinion and my knowledge and my skill within a conversation environment. Yeah. It's a real challenge for me. I'm a great active listener because I get information and I use it. It's the passive listening of not like literally shutting up and just letting the person, because I can show love, I can give good feedback, but it's the I've got something to say.
Yeah.
Well, I have something to say. Are they done? I can say this. And that's stillness is the hardest thing. I'm with you. I fight the millions of things going on in my brain, and so I have had to incorporate mindfulness on a daily.
Yeah.
And it started back when I was a kid. As long as I can remember, as far back as I can remember, my mom used to come in at night and pat me on the back when I go to sleep. And she had this breathing pattern. She would take deep breaths and she'd be like, release all the energy from your toe. Take a deep breath, release all the energy and we would work all the way up my body to my brain.
God.
And I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I don't know.
That's amazing.
And I don't know if I just was a hyper kid, anxiety, which I probably was.
We all are.
But I do remember that mindfulness. It was one of the,
awesome.
If I think back to anything that has taught me a pattern of that, that's the one thing. And I'm like, well, my mom taught me. So, and even like when I go to bed at night or I'm having a moment of emotional heightenedness, I have a strict breathing pattern I get into, and then I try to take that into some mantra stuff and hope to God I find myself.
Well, and I think, too, you have to remember that you're human. We all are human. And it's okay to have, like, thoughts and be angry and, like, why I want to shut this person up, right? What is not okay is when we start to disrespect and we start to go into that hate level vibration. Some tools that have helped me a lot because being a light worker, you want to try to stay light, bright, love, and all that stuff. But again, human, you have anger, you have fear, you have anxiety, you have all this stuff.
Yeah.
I sometimes, if I'm mad at somebody and I'm not really sure, like if I'm not ready to have a conversation with them because of, I don't want to stir drama or whatever it is, right?
Right.
I will have a conversation that this may sound crazy, but I will yell at them in my head. Or I will yell at them at my pillow, or I will punch something out, or I will scream somewhere.
Oh my God.
Until it releases, until I feel good enough to be like, okay, I'm not going to yell at them anymore because I feel really stupid yelling at them enough in my mind.
I love it. You're giggling yourself. I do this with my dog. I'm like, I'm going to go on a walk. And I'm with my dog, and I'll just start talking out loud. And then she's looking at me like, what? I'm doing the right thing. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm just talking to myself. I'm working through some stuff.
Your poor dog.
She's like, am I supposed to
Dad?
sit?
What do you want from me? I'm sorry.
I love that. And I wonder what everybody else does. And I think it might be a good point to for everybody to take a minute and think about what we're talking about. Like have that moment to say, when we find those moments where we know what our triggers are, do we have a tool, and can we practice that on a way to just be an observer, practice some stillness, and show love?
Yeah. And also why? Like, I think that figuring out why you're being triggered. Are you being triggered because of your own personal stuff? And most of the time that's what it is. And then you want to go into the work from there, right? Like figuring out you doing your exploration and being able to be like, okay, I'm being triggered because this happened to me when I was 8 and now it's coming back up. Okay, how can I release this? And moving through the process like that without judging yourself and without getting angry at that other person.
It's good advice. It's great advice. It's just hard.
It is.
It's hard.
It is.
We're kind of wrapping up here.
Ooh.
So what I like to do at the end of the podcast is do what's called a final 4 questions that I've prepared either before or during. And one sentence, not too long, but we'll see how it goes. Ms. Winters. So we'll see how it goes. Final 4. Okay. Question number 1. What is the least expensive thing that you own that you could not do without?
That's so hard.
These are not easy.
These are not easy ones. My amethyst.
Question number 2. Your advice to the work. You know what? I asked this question already. Okay. I'm going to skip it. Okay. Question number 2. If your movie was releasing this weekend, what is the title and who is the lead actress?
Oh my gosh. I think this is already a title, but My So-Called Life, Margot Robbie, because I love her.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm excited for that. I love her.
I love her.
Oh, that's, man.
I just want her to be my best friend.
That's adorable. Okay, question number 3. We didn't talk about your parents much, so I'm going to ask this. If when you have your first child, I don't believe you have children, do you?
No, I don't have children.
Who gets to name your first child if you had to choose your mother or your father?
Oh, my mom, for sure.
Oh, God, that was easy.
Oh, my gosh, my mom, for sure. God,
okay.
I'm not leaving that to my dad. I love you, Dad, but oh, my
goodness. Last question. Question number 4. What is something that you would like people to know about you that they don't get to see very often?
Well, my friends get to see this often, so they know. But for my clients and things that, people that work on me one-on-one, they see more serious Jaclyn. I am so silly. I am the silliest, most weird, strange girl. And sometimes things come out of my mouth and I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know where that came from.
Well, that's great. It's very vulnerable of you to say. One thing we didn't tap into today, and I want to make sure we close with this, is that Jaclyn has put a lot of work into an app that's going to be coming out soon.
Yes.
You can see her videos and things like that on Instagram and Facebook. However, if you want to give a little plug for the app, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, the app's coming out hopefully in the next couple weeks. It should be done, and it'll be out for Christmas and New Year's. If you follow me on Instagram and things like that, and if you even want to shoot me your email, then I can put you on our email list, and I'll let you know when it comes out, and it'll be available in the App Store.
And this is called The Conscious Method.
The Conscious Method, yep.
Well, it has definitely been my pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
To have Jaclyn Winters here today. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please go check out her social media and her website and pay attention for the app. Hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you again for making the choice to tune in for whylab, and good luck out there. One love.